Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. How's it going over there?
It's going good. It's going good. It's life.
Yeah, yeah, it is life.
It is. But honestly, I think this week, um, or the past couple of weeks, I think I've been trying to bring my focus to the things that bring me joy and happiness, rather
Mm-hmm.
than like because it's been a pretty intense couple of months. So what I kind of last week, I think I was like one of the days I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm tired of being stressed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also really tired of like thinking about all the negative things that exist in our world because there are a lot. Like you turn on the news and there's a lot of things you have to listen to and a lot of things just happening in my personal life, as we know as well. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to take my attention to gratitude, but more so like I'm going to try to just put myself in a mood where I'm experiencing more joy and more happiness. So it's been nice.
A little bit of opposite to emotion action, if you will.
Yes, exactly. Although it's been easy, and I say this because like honestly, my husband Adriel's just makes it so easy to be happy when I'm at home with him. Like, he's just such a nice, like grounding, happy place for me. But then like when I would come out and deal with other things, like I would get taken away. So I was like, you know what? Even in those moments, I'm going to try to navigate being happy, which I think that's kind of why I wanted us to talk about that actually, because I know it's not easy to find joy and happiness or to create it or make it happen for yourself when life doesn't do it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some contexts where it's a lot easier to experience joy and some other ones where it's a bit harder.
I know.
That's definitely true. But I like this idea of just trying to cultivate moments of joy. And I think that alongside, it's interesting the way that we kind of think about kind of going into the day of like having that be an intention and trying to figure out like when, what moments elicit joy throughout the day. And there are sometimes like, there are moments, even if on the whole we might have had a different experience. So it's interesting just starting to increase our mindfulness of positive experiences, increasing mindfulness of joy as a whole.
Yeah. And it's very difficult sometimes because your mind to like there's a lot to think about, there's a lot to worry about. And I think as life is like our society is changing, so even social media, like I can open one video can actually bring me so much joy and laughter, and then the next video can bring me like a lot of sadness. And like when you're looking at people's stories,
Yeah.
so it's everywhere, right? Like that shift in the emotion within moments and the mood change, whether if it's not even in your mind, and if you're trying to use something to distract, even the distraction can take you to a different mood. And I think for me, especially, you know what's funny, how it came up? It came up for me because I was in a session talking to a patient about like, listen, like in life, it's nice and easy to rely on outside sources to bring us happiness, but life doesn't do that always. Like life is stressful sometimes. So sometimes like the negative is a lot more like out there versus the positive. So sometimes you have to bring your focus and your attention to the things that are positive so you can balance it. And then I like after the session I stopped and I was like, do that myself. Like, but and it's hard because there are a lot of times, especially with like with the news of what's happening in the Middle East, even now, like my country is now involved. Or not my country, my parents' country. My country is the United States of America, but like a country that I lived in is now involved. So even then, I was like, it's really hard to catch your thought and then
Mhm.
bring myself back to the here and now and be like, okay, like in this moment, what else is going on that's actually on the positive end? Like it, yes, the negative end exists, and you're not trying to like diminish it. You're not trying to make it go away. You're not trying to say the negative should not exist. And what else exists that can also be positive?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what you're talking about is just having is like that kind of broader mindfulness of like as we holistically are aware of like kind of everything that exists. And there's so much the duality of human nature, the duality of the world right now, just thinking through like geopolitical conflict, World War III, like there are a lot of things that can kind of grab your attention and pull them in one direction, and having intention around what else exists in this moment. And of course, it's easy to suggest that like it could, it everything feels like kind of cheapened by this broader context. But I think that there's only a degree to which we can focus on certain things. And of course, this is a privilege in and of itself, right? In some spaces, contexts that we would be in, we wouldn't have this privilege. But in this privileged moment where you're able to turn your attention, does it make sense for you to? And if I think about just from the perspective of how do I maintain myself to a degree, even as a person who like provides therapy to other people, if we are too fully focused and too fully oriented on that other stuff, I
Mm,
can't still show up.
yeah,
And that's really kind of just starting to balance those things of like, I need joy. I need to still be able to access joy because otherwise I can't show up tomorrow.
yeah,
And if you think about anybody who's had a profound absence of joy, and this is like, definitely the throes of depression or otherwise, anhedonia, that experience of not getting the same experience of things as you once did, all of those experiences, I think, just create a context in which someone becomes incredibly burnt out.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that you're saying that because the anhedonia is real for so many people, right? And again, like nowadays, whether it's nowadays, I'm sure it's happened through generations, but if we're going to bring it to the now, like you're working from morning, and then you have to deal with like outside stressors, and then if you have like a person or someone that you care about and their stressors, and then like you have like goals you want to achieve in life, but you're not meeting those goals, and nothing in life seems to be going exactly how you want it to be, and everything feels out of reach, and everything feels impossible, and everything feels like it's out of your control. And so that's kind of the stage of anhedonia that starts kicking in for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Mhm.
And it's really it really is as simple as bringing yourself back to the now, and know what you're privileged with.
Mhm.
And it's not in a sense of like this, again, you're not trying to dismiss anything by saying like, I'm grateful and I'm privileged and there's joy in X, Y, and Z. You're not dismissing all the other things, you're balancing. You're doing the balance of like, yes, all of these stressors and painful or frustrating things exist in my day-to-day life. And all of these positive, uplifting, and hopeful things also exist in my day-to-day life. And having that balance helps you from getting burnt out in life, which is the anhedonia, because life is, it's a lot every day.
Mhm. And what
Every,
you're on is the dialectics of joy, right? The
Mhm.
dialectics of joy can exist even in the face of conflict, tragedy, and all of those things. And as we start to kind of dive in here, it feels like, yeah, it feels like those things can't coexist, but they always do.
Yeah. And it's not, and it's, and I don't know how much of this is true because I don't live in those countries, but I was watching a video with kids. And it's a bit heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was so eye-opening. I was watching a video of kids from Palestine and Israel, right? Like from the areas that they got, like Palestine more so bombed and but from both countries. And then there are kids from like America and all these places, and they're asking the kids, like, if you had one wish, what would your wish be? And like you have the kids from Palestine and Israel saying like bread. I wish I could eat bread, or I wish I could hug my dad. And then you have the kids from the US and the UK and places like that saying like, I wish I had $1 million, and I wish I had like a big house. And then they'll say like, what are you grateful for? And every single one of them could find something to be grateful for, whether it was like having their sister, whether it was, I don't know, like having to go play sports for that day. All of the kids were able to express having something to be grateful for, no matter what part of the world they came from and how privileged they were. Like again, Palestine, they're not privileged right now. They don't have anything. They're wishing for bread, but they can still find something to be optimistic about. And I think people forget that that simple thing can help no matter where the person is. And it's heartbreaking to hear a kid wish for bread and also be grateful for their sister, or hear a kid say they wish they could hug their dad again, but be grateful for the sun that came out that day. But I think that's the thing. You can be both.
This is reminding me too of in the dialectical behavior therapy, distress tolerance skills, there's this concept of meaning, of being able to make meaning in moments. And I think that the key is in finding gratitude, making meaning in these situations is that it cannot be forced upon you. And I think that like people can find it. And if you're not ready to, that's okay too. Like, I think it's okay to just have that moment of being, I am heartbroken of like where I am. And like, if you can and you can access that, that's great.
Yeah.
I think it does. Like seeing the duality of the moment, I think helps to, it's one of those kind of lenses through which we can look through and start to see something different. It can start to help shift our mood or mindset. But I think that it's always with care that I always think about these things, because in some moments of human suffering, of wanting to be able to hold that, like there's not one way to do it, and not to, suggest that one is better than the other, really just seeing what's accessible. And in some moments of suffering, people can hold both, and some that they can't. And there's definitely a reason for that. So I think it's like, yes, I think that like being able to kind of approach these things, and as we like start to kind of try to hold on to the other side of never feeling forced in doing so. Because I think that, and it's something that I've noticed at any moment in time where I feel like maybe kind of overwhelmed or overcome with an emotion, whenever someone tries to offer the other side of the dialectic or something to like, oh, well, it could always be worse. Sometimes it can always be experienced as invalidating. And so I really try to hold both at the same time of like this for myself of like, it's okay if I'm not ready for that yet. And if I am, awesome. But I think that like usually has to be self-motivated or intrinsically motivated in order to be able to really access that. And that's why kind of as we're having this conversation of seeing if we're able to like develop that pull ourselves, because if I don't pull it out of myself, no one's pulling it out of me.
Yeah, and it's so true in like it's for so many people, for a lot of like even for a lot of patients that are in the office and they're like, well, I just can't, like I can't get, I want to come out of this, but I can't right now. Like I can't see the silver lining. I can't make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
A lot of times it really is where I tell them like, that's okay.
Yeah.
When you are ready, you
Mhm.
will, and it'll be the best silver lining you can think of. Like if you're forcing the silver lining, you're not going to be able to force that silver lining. Like we have to go through our ups and downs. And sometimes one of the things that I tell all the time, and I believe this, the deepest you go, when you hit that rock bottom, when you come out a more beautiful version, because you're able to see things in a different light, but you can't force that path to be different. Like, it just is the way it is, right? Just meanwhile, don't forget that there is another direction back up. It's not just all the way downhill and you're never going to come back up again. So know that the direction back up exists. You don't have to know when. You don't have to force yourself to be able to see that light and silver lining. Just know that it'll come when it comes, and get comfortable in that knowledge that it will come. It's that hopelessness that it's never gonna come. That's the part where you got to challenge, I would say.
Yes, I think that there's an impermanence to our experiences, and that's like a really I think reassuring like framework to have, that like, and I think of course in like happy moments of like kind of wanting to hold on to it forever, but there is an impermanence to kind of whatever pain and suffering is happening, that it will end. Just as like I have a cold right now and I know it's going to go away. I am unhappy with this cold right now and I know it will be gone soon. Unfortunately, not today. But I think as we're like kind of thinking about things as impermanent, like, and with any kind of discomfort that we experience, of being able to hold on to that, I think it kind of right sizes it, so to speak, of like, it takes it out of like making it proportionate to how much pain and suffering of like kind of decatastrophizing.
Yeah, and listen, the other, I can also go with the conversation, because I could just hear someone being like, yeah, but like, what about all the kids that are like dying because of a war that shouldn't even be happening? And it's like, I like, yes, that kind of pain and suffering and that kind of misery is just like, the idea of it is painful. Like, I get that. Even like sitting back and listening and imagining what they're going through, like, your heart breaks, your whole mind of like unfairness and all of that. And I think this is the piece where you can't change the world and humanity for decades and generations, whether we like it or not. This ego and power has caused war. If you take it back to even the days where we lived like, we didn't even speak, like, and we were little huts, like one group went a little too far and realized there were a bunch of other human-like things, and they killed each other and they took over that whole region. Like, that's just nature. Yeah. And we don't have to like nature. And it's when time comes, there'll be a silver lining that can be seen for nature. And it
Yeah,
is.
there will be. And I think it's so true. Like, yeah, we can't change the reality that we're living in. And these are just, as we're talking, these are just the ways of trying to cope with it. Because, and I think to like kind of bring us full circle, because the more we like kind of throw ourselves into just the like kind of demoralization that can happen when we look at the world, the harder it is to keep going. And as two therapists who definitely need to show up to work tomorrow, the deeper we go into that demoralization, the harder it is to come out and just try to help guide someone to feel less demoralized themselves. And so this is what we do. We try to get some little joy.
This is what we do. We radically accept things and we bring ourselves to the here and now. And we identify certain things that bring us joy on this beautiful Thursday, late of the day. And the thing that brings me joy now is that it's finally sunny in California. And I'm done with my day after this.
Yeah. I think the thing that brings me joy is that I have somehow gotten this little fur ball to come to stay with us
Oh.
She smells like a Frito.
Look at her cutie patootie.
This tiny little creature
Yeah.
is very joy producing. And same with the other one who's now going through my clothing.
Yeah, I will say Mingus is very joy producing. So Mingus is new thing that brings me so much joy just to share this. In the mornings, I take him out to play with his friends in our courtyard, and they throw a ball. But Mingus is a bit on the spectrum. He came out defected. So this dog just holds one ball in his mouth and runs back and forth with the other dogs, like just with the ball in his mouth. And he tries to catch the other ball and he realizes that he can't because he has a ball in his mouth. And that brings me joy. So every morning I tell his friends, come down and play. And they play fetch and he pretends to play fetch.
He plays his own version of fetch.
He plays his own version of fetch. So if you guys can hold on to anything that brings you joy to balance your cup, your internal cup, so you don't hit anhedonia, so you don't hit burnout, no matter how hard life is and how painful and how much suffering exists, it'll help. It'll help you get through the day and it'll help you live as healthy as possible.
Yeah, we're all just trying to get through the fucking day.
That's it, man. Thursday.
Happy Thursday.